I exposed my family's scam. Now they're all facing jail time. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I never thought I'd be the one to ruin my own family. But the day I picked up the phone and dialed the fraud hotline, everything changed. My hands shook as I gave my last name. The name that, until then, had been my whole world. I could barely hear my own voice as I told the agent, "I have information about a scam. It's my family. I need to do the right thing." Flash forward, blue lights swirling outside our house, neighbors gawking as my parents, my brother, even my aunt were led away in cuffs. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. My mother's eyes met mine through the patrol car window, rage, heartbreak, and something like betrayal burning in her stare. My father refused to look at me at all. I stood on the porch, surrounded by chaos and sirens, and wondered how it had come to this. What makes a person choose justice over blood? And was I even sure I'd chosen right? It started months earlier, with little things, whispered phone calls behind closed doors, cash deposits that never matched up, business trips no one could explain. At first I thought I was being paranoid. Every family has secrets, right? But then my uncle slipped and called me by the wrong name during a tense dinner. "Don't worry, Tom. Tom is my cousin, not me." His face went pale. "Slip of the tongue," he said. But the room went silent. I began to watch and listen more closely. Receipts stuffed in drawers, letters with no return address, passwords scribbled on scraps of paper. My mother got defensive if I asked questions. My brother started snapping at me for snooping. I felt the distance growing with every passing day. One night, I caught them all in the living room, arguing in low voices. My name came up, along with the word cover story. That's when I knew. I was either part of their scheme, or I was a threat. I chose to be a threat. After that night, every sound in our house took on new meaning. The click of a locked door, the hush of hurried voices, the creak of floorboards in the middle of the night. I barely slept, anxiety crawling over my skin. My parents acted normal by day, smiling and insisting everything was fine. But at night, I heard them arguing about accounts, paperwork, and who could be trusted. I started searching for answers. I waited until everyone was asleep, then slipped through the house with my phone's flashlight. In the den, I found a pile of mail hidden in an old chessboard box, bank statements and fake names, wire transfers from places I'd never heard of, checks made out to shell companies. My heart hammered. Was it money laundering? Tax fraud? Something worse? I took photos of everything, shaky hands, guilt twisting in my gut. I felt like a traitor and a detective all at once. Each click of the camera felt like a nail in the coffin of the family I thought I knew. I confronted my brother first. "What's going on with Mom and Dad? What are these companies?" He stared at me, cold and sharp. "You don't want to know? Trust me." His words were more warning than comfort. "Don't get involved. You're not built for this." But I couldn't stop. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. My family was running a scam that stretched far beyond what I'd imagined. Insurance fraud, fake charities, stolen identities. And it was getting riskier. I overheard my father whisper, "If anyone finds out, we're all done." That's when the threats began. My aunt cornered me in the hallway, her face tight with fear and fury. "You need to keep quiet. Family comes first, always." I looked her in the eyes, my voice trembling but honest. "Not when it means breaking the law. Not anymore." She slapped me hard. "If you ruin us, you'll regret it." I ran to my room, heart pounding, realizing there was no way back. My family was turning into my enemy, and I had to decide, silence or justice. After my aunt's threat, the house became a battlefield. I stopped eating dinner with everyone. My texts were short, my eyes always scanning. My mother tried to act like nothing was wrong, making my favorite meals, humming in the kitchen, but there was a coldness in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. I started locking my bedroom door at night. The pressure mounted. I kept collecting evidence, photos, copies of emails, notes about every strange phone call. The lies stacked up so high I couldn't tell where the truth ended and the con began. Sleep was nearly impossible. I jumped at every sound, terrified they'd discover what I was doing. One afternoon, I noticed my laptop had been moved. When I checked, some files were missing, documents I'd saved about their scam. My stomach turned to ice. Someone was onto me. That night, My brother cornered me as I came out of the bathroom. "Don't be stupid," he growled, blocking my path. "You want to ruin everything for all of us. You think the world cares about you? They'll eat you alive, and you'll drag us all down with you." "I'm not the one breaking the law," I whispered, voice shaking. "I just wanted to stop." He sneered. "Go ahead. Try. See what happens." From then on, I was never alone in the house. My parents started keeping tabs on where I went and who I saw. My phone would ring with no one on the other end, just heavy breathing. Sometimes I'd find my car keys moved or my things rifled through. They wanted to scare me. It almost worked, but I'd already made my choice. I called a lawyer, using a payphone blocks from home. I asked about whistleblower protections and what would happen if I reported everything. The lawyer warned me, "Prepare to lose them. You'll be safe, but nothing will ever be the same." I went home that night and looked at my family, my real family, now strangers. My heart ached, but my mind was clear. Tomorrow, I would go to the authorities. I barely slept that night, nerves firing every time a floorboard creaked. Before dawn, I packed a bag with my evidence, spare clothes, and the burner phone I'd bought with cash. The morning felt unreal. My mother's brittle smile, my father's eyes never meeting mine, my brother scrolling his phone with that practiced mask of indifference. I left without saying goodbye. At the police station, the words tangled in my throat, but I forced them out. "I need to report a crime. It's my family. I have proof." The detective who took my statement was calm, even kind, but her questions were relentless. "How long has this been going on? Who else is involved? Are you afraid for your safety?" I handed over my files and watched as she scrolled through the evidence. Bank records, fake charities, offshore transfers, emails signed with code names. "This is a lot," she admitted. "You did the right thing. But you know this will blow up your life, right?" I nodded. "I know, but I can't be part of this anymore." They put me in a safe house that night, an anonymous apartment with empty walls and a single bed. I stared at the ceiling, guilt gnawing at me. My family would be arrested. I might never see them again. I'd chosen justice, but it felt like betrayal all the same. The next morning, the news broke. Local family arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. My phone lit up with messages, some friends offering support, others calling me a traitor. Reporters camped outside my old house, neighbors whispering behind curtains. That day, my mother called from jail. Her voice was ice. "Are you happy now? You've destroyed us. You're dead to me." Tears burned my eyes, but I stood my ground. "I still love you, but I had to stop this." She hung up. The silence afterward was worse than any threat. As the sun set behind the city skyline, I realized the hardest part wasn't over. The fight for justice had begun, but the cost was everything I'd ever known. The days blurred together. I lived in the safe house, the walls closing in as reporters hounded me for a comment. My lawyer checked in daily, preparing me for what was coming. "You'll have to testify," he warned. "They'll attack your character. Try to make you look crazy, vengeful, anything to discredit you." The news ran my family's mugshots in a lurid slideshow. Former friends stopped replying. Distant cousins messaged, some furious, some begging for the truth. My brother sent a single text, "Hope you're proud." Every day, new details of the scam emerged. The police raided our home, carting out boxes of paperwork, computers, even family heirlooms. I saw photos online, my childhood bedroom gutted, the walls stripped bare. A part of me grieved for everything I'd lost, but another part felt light, like I was finally free of secrets I'd never wanted. Then came the subpoenas. I sat across from prosecutors, reliving every suspicious dinner, every coded phone call, every time my parents lied to my face. I felt exposed, like my soul was being laid bare for strangers to judge. The first court hearing was surreal. My parents wouldn't look at me. My aunt glared daggers as the charges were read. My brother smirked, mouthing something I couldn't quite catch, probably another threat or curse. That night, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, hollow-eyed and older than before. Had I done the right thing? Was justice worth this loneliness? I remembered what my lawyer said. "You're not responsible for their crimes, only for telling the truth." As the case gathered momentum, my family's lawyers went on the attack. They painted me as bitter, vengeful, a jealous outcast. It stung, but I held firm. Then, one morning, a note was slipped under my door. "If you testify, you'll regret it." Fear cut through me. The battle for truth was turning into a war for survival. The note was just the beginning. After that, the threats escalated. Anonymous texts, emails from untraceable accounts. Keep your mouth shut. Blood over everything. I started glancing over my shoulder every time I left the safe house, flinching at shadows, double-checking the locks at night. The police offered protection, but it felt like a flimsy shield against decades of family loyalty now turned to hate. My lawyer urged me not to let them intimidate me. It's a scare tactic. They're desperate, and desperation makes people reckless. Don't back down. But the fear was real. The weight of isolation pressed on me, heavier each day. I missed my mother's laughter, my father's quiet advice, even my brother's teasing. But every memory was stained now, twisted by what I'd uncovered and what I'd had to do. Then, one afternoon, a journalist showed up at my door, persistent, respectful. People deserve to hear your side. Why did you do it? She asked, notebook poised. I almost turned her away, but the words spilled out. The guilt, the confusion, the years of gaslighting, and how it all felt like drowning in secrets. I didn't want to lose my family, I said, voice raw. But I couldn't let them hurt anyone else, either. I just wanted out. She listened, quietly taking notes. When the story ran, it was the first time I saw my actions framed as courage instead of betrayal. For a moment, I felt less alone. But the backlash was swift. Online trolls sent death threats. Old friends posted angry messages. Even distant relatives chimed in, calling me a traitor. The noise was suffocating. Still, something changed inside me. The more they tried to silence me, the more determined I became to see this through. One night, as I lay awake, my phone buzzed. This time, it was a single message. We know where you are. The stakes had never been higher. I realized I'd crossed a line. There was no turning back now. After that message, sleep became impossible. Every sound outside my window set my nerves on edge. The police rotated cars outside, and my lawyer insisted I keep every light on at night. I felt like a prisoner in my own life, held captive not just by my family's crimes, but by the fallout of telling the truth. The day of my testimony arrived. My hands shook as I stepped into the courthouse, public, exposed, knowing the eyes of my family and the world were on me. The courtroom was packed, reporters, strangers, and behind a row of uniformed officers, my family. My mother's face was blank, a mask I no longer recognized. My brother glared, jaw clenched, eyes full of betrayal. The prosecutor started gently, guiding me through my story, how I discovered the scam, the threats, the evidence I'd gathered. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to go on, refusing to look away from the faces of people I'd once trusted with my life. The defense tore into me. Isn't it true you resented your family? That you were jealous of their success? That you're just seeking revenge? I held my ground, repeating the truth. I loved my family. That's why I tried so hard to save them from themselves. That's why I had to stop them. When the session ended, I nearly collapsed outside the courtroom, shaking from adrenaline and heartbreak. Rose, my lawyer's assistant, and my only real friend left, met me with a hug. You did it. You were brave, she whispered. But the trial was far from over. The press hounded me as I left, hungry for a quote, a reaction, anything. I pushed through the flashing cameras, repeating a single thought in my mind. They can take my family, my reputation, but they can't take the truth. That night, another note slipped under my door. Last warning. You'll regret this forever. I stared at it, anger outweighing fear at last. Let them threaten. I wouldn't back down, not after coming this far. The days after my testimony dragged on in a haze of anxiety and loneliness. Every headline seemed to scream my family's disgrace. My phone was a battlefield, some friends quietly offering support, but most messages were barbed or accusing. Even distant relatives demanded silence or threatened to never forgive. The safe house walls felt tighter every day. The police assured me I was protected, but fear was a constant companion. Still, beneath the fear, something new was taking root, defiance. For the first time, I felt the weight of my own courage. I'd done the unthinkable. I'd survived. Court dragged on for weeks. My parents' defense grew more desperate, their lawyers spinning new lies, painting me as unstable, money-hungry, even delusional. Each accusation stung, But the prosecutor always brought it back to the evidence, the documents, the audio, the paper trail I'd risked everything to collect. One night, Rose came by with takeout and a bottle of cheap wine. We ate on the tiny safe house couch, laughter breaking the tension for the first time in months. "I know it hurts," she said quietly, "but you're free now. No more secrets. No more lies." I nodded, feeling the truth of it settle in. Maybe my family would never forgive me. Maybe the world would always call me a traitor. But I'd stood up for what was right. That mattered. Just as I started to hope, my lawyer called. "There's been a break-in at your old house. They're looking for evidence. Maybe even trying to destroy it. We need you at court tomorrow, early. The judge will hear new charges." I hung up, a mix of dread and relief running through me. My family was losing their grip. I was winning, not just the case, but my life back. As I lay in bed, one last message lit up my phone. "Blood is forever. You made your choice." For the first time, I whispered back, "Yes, I did." The morning of the new hearing, the courthouse buzzed with even more tension. Security was tighter. Extra officers, metal detectors, whispered warnings from my lawyer. "Stay close." No surprises. My family arrived under heavy guard. My father looked haggard, my mother gaunt and exhausted, my brother barely concealing his simmering rage. The judge addressed the latest break-in, laying out the evidence, security footage, fingerprints, a failed attempt to destroy critical documents. It was clear. Even with everything crumbling, someone in my family would rather commit another crime than face the truth. The judge's eyes cut to me. "Do you feel safe testifying further?" he asked. I met his gaze, voice steady for the first time in weeks. "Yes, Your Honor. I want to finish this." Back on the stand, I told the court about the threats, the stalking, the attempted sabotage. The prosecutor submitted the latest messages and surveillance. The defense scrambled, painting my family as desperate, broken, victims of circumstance. But every lie fell apart in the face of hard evidence. Midway through my testimony, my brother snapped. He shouted across the courtroom, "You think you're better than us? You'll regret this. You're nothing without family." His voice echoed, raw and wounded, as bailiffs dragged him out. In that chaos, I saw the boy he'd once been, lost long before this all began. The judge restored order. "This case is no longer just about fraud," he said sternly. "It's about justice and the courage to speak the truth, even when it costs everything." As I left the stand, a strange calm washed over me. The world outside still whispered traitor, but inside, for the first time, I felt unbreakable. The verdict was near. Whatever happened next, I would face it on my own terms. The courthouse was silent as the jury filed in, the air crackling with tension. Every seat was filled. Reporters poised, former friends with folded arms, distant relatives refusing to meet my eyes. My family sat in a tight cluster, shoulders hunched and faces drawn. I braced myself for the moment that would end the old chapter of my life forever. The judge asked, "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The foreperson stood, paper trembling slightly in her hand. "We find the defendants guilty on all counts." For a moment, everything stopped. My mother gasped. My father dropped his head into his hands. My brother stared at me with undisguised hatred, lips curling into a silent snarl. My aunt broke down in tears, whispering prayers that no one answered. The judge pronounced the sentence: years in prison, massive restitution, and a warning that every asset they'd stolen would be clawed back by the courts. The courtroom erupted, some in shock, some in applause, others in barely restrained outrage. The reporters surged forward. Microphones were thrust toward me. "Do you regret what you did? Was it worth destroying your own family?" I swallowed hard. Doing the right thing isn't always easy or painless. But someone had to stop the cycle. Someone had to stand up for the truth. Outside, the news vans and flashing lights felt surreal. I texted Rose, "It's over. I'm free." She replied instantly, "I'm proud of you. Come home when you're ready." As I walked away from the courthouse, I realized that the cost of justice had been staggering. My family, my old life, the comfort of belonging. But for the first time, the future was my own. That night, in the quiet of the safe house, I wept for everything I'd lost. But I also wept for the strength I'd found. Tomorrow, I would start over, and no one would ever own my story again. The days after the verdict blurred into each other. Reporters camped outside the safe house, hoping for a final soundbite. Some friends tried to reconnect, awkwardly apologizing for doubting me. Others vanished completely, unable to look past the scandal. Even distant relatives sent cold messages. You should have handled this privately. You never cared about family. But the truth had already reshaped my life. I spent mornings at Rose's, sipping coffee in her tiny kitchen, both of us trying to believe that normalcy could exist again. Sometimes we sat in silence. Sometimes we laughed at old memories, slowly patching together something like hope. One afternoon, I sorted through boxes from the old house. Photos, childhood drawings, heirlooms that weren't evidence. I cried over some, packed others away for good. The grief was real, but so was the relief. The secrets were gone. I could finally breathe. My parents wrote from prison, one stiff, formal letter each. My mother blamed me for everything, her words sharp and icy. My father's letter was shorter, softer. Maybe someday you'll forgive us. I hope you find peace. My brother didn't write at all. For weeks, I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. The world still watched, some waiting for my next mistake. I kept my head down, taking long walks in the evening, learning how to be alone without being lonely. But one day, at the edge of the park, a woman stopped me. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice trembling. "My brother stole from our family too, but I never had your courage." Her words cracked something open inside me. Maybe I hadn't just ended a legacy of lies. Maybe, in my pain, I'd started something new for someone else. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Truth costs everything, but it gives you back yourself." And I clung to that as the world, at last, began to move forward. As the months passed, the noise faded. Headlines gave way to new scandals, the world's attention drifting elsewhere. But I was still here, trying to assemble a life from the pieces left behind. Rose became my anchor. We shared dinners, inside jokes, and even small adventures. Her way of teaching me that healing wasn't something you waited for, but something you built, one choice at a time. On Sundays, I joined her and a handful of others at a local support group for whistleblowers. For the first time, I sat among people who understood exactly what it meant to choose the truth over comfort, justice over family. I listened as others shared their stories, betrayal, loss, loneliness, but also pride and hard-won peace. Some were further along the path than me, some still deep in pain, but every voice made me feel less alone. One evening, the group leader asked, "If you could go back, would you do it differently?" I thought about the nights spent terrified, the bitter letters from prison, the empty place where my family had been. I pictured my mother's face in the courtroom, my brother's hate. But I also remembered that woman in the park, and the sense of relief every morning I woke up without secrets. "No," I answered softly. "I'd still tell the truth, even if it broke me." The group nodded, some with tears, some with smiles. For a moment, the room felt like home. Later, Rose and I walked under the streetlights. She squeezed my hand. "You have a family again," she said. "Not by blood, but by choice." I smiled, letting the words sink in. Maybe I hadn't just lost everything. I'd found something new. A family built on truth, acceptance, and a kind of love I'd never expected. As the seasons changed, I let go of who I'd been. And for the first time, I looked forward to who I might become. Spring brought new rituals. Coffee on Rose's porch, weekly meetings with my support group, slow walks through city gardens blooming with color. Yet, some wounds refused to close. My mother's letters from prison became less frequent, but no softer. Each one reopened old pain. As she clung to denial and blame, "You abandoned us. You chose strangers over family." I wrote back just once. "I chose the truth because I love you. Because I couldn't live with the lies. Maybe one day you'll see that." No reply came. Sometimes I wondered if forgiveness meant letting go, or simply learning to live with scars. My father's letters, though sparse, were different. He asked about my life, shared small memories, birthday cakes, summer trips, the sound of laughter before secrets grew. I replied cautiously, telling him about Rose, my new family, the strange freedom of honesty. His next letter ended with, "You did what was right, even if we couldn't." Those words settled something deep inside me. I found work at a local nonprofit, helping others in crisis. The first paycheck was small, but I felt a pride I'd never known. Even my family's money couldn't buy this sense of meaning. Sometimes, my story would surface in the news or come up in conversation. I no longer shrank from it. Yes, that was me, I'd say. It nearly broke me, but it made me stronger, too. One day after group, a new member pulled me aside. She was trembling, terrified, her own family threatening to ruin her if she spoke out. "How do you live with what you lost?" she whispered. I squeezed her hand. By remembering what I found. As dusk fell, I realized forgiveness was a journey, not a destination. I might never forget the pain, but I'd learned how to live beyond it. And that was enough for now. Summer arrived, and with it, a quiet steadiness I'd never known before. I moved into a small apartment near the river, sunlight spilling across the floors each morning. There were days I missed my old life, family dinners, holiday chaos, the sense of being part of something bigger. But those memories were woven with secrets, and I'd learned to cherish the honesty of solitude over the comfort of lies. Rose helped me furnish the new place, picking out secondhand lamps and faded rugs that made the rooms feel like home. "You get to start fresh," she smiled. "No baggage but your own." I laughed, grateful for her kindness, her friendship, a family by choice, not blood. Work at the nonprofit filled my days with purpose. I listened to clients navigating their own storms, abuse, fraud, betrayals that echoed my own, and realized my story could help others find the courage to speak. Sometimes I wondered if the pain was worth it, if anything could ever make up for what I'd lost. One afternoon, a letter arrived from my father. His handwriting was shaky, but the words clear. "I'm sorry for what we did. I hope you find happiness. You deserve it." I read it again and again, tears slipping down my cheeks, not for the man he'd become, but for the hope that we might both heal someday. My mother never wrote again. I kept showing up for myself, day after day. The grief dulled, replaced by a cautious hope. I planted herbs on my windowsill, let light back into my life, and watched as tiny green shoots pushed through the dirt, fragile, persistent, and new. Sometimes, at dusk, I stood by the river, the city quiet behind me, and let myself mourn. But always, I returned to the present, a life rebuilt from truth, friendship, and the hard-won gift of freedom. Autumn found me stronger than I'd ever been. The city's trees blazed gold, and for the first time, I welcomed the change. There was no reunion with my family. My mother's silence remained absolute, my brother's anger untouched. But my father wrote sometimes, each letter a little softer, a little closer to the man I once loved. Rose and I marked my first year of freedom with coffee and laughter on her balcony, wrapped in old blankets. "You're not who you were," she said, her eyes warm. "You're better." I saw it too. How the weight of secrets had left me, how I'd learned to fill my own space with honesty and compassion. The nonprofit promoted me. I shared my story at a conference, my voice steady as I told a crowded room. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's telling the truth, even when it costs you everything. More survivors reached out. I listened. I answered. I remembered the nights I thought I'd never feel whole again. I understood now. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who stand by you when the world falls apart. Sometimes, when the wind rattled my windows, I thought of what I'd lost. But every sunrise reminded me of what I'd found, a self that couldn't be bought or broken. One night, standing at the riverbank, city lights shimmering on the water, I finally let myself dream. Not of the past, or even of forgiveness, but of joy, purpose, and peace. I had paid dearly for my freedom, but in the stillness of that moment, I knew. My story wasn't one of betrayal. It was one of becoming. And for the first time, I was exactly where I belonged.